First thing, I got into the taxi, and first shock was basically the whole 20-minute ride was, I think it cost me £25. And I remember thinking, bloody hell, I could travel a very long way in India for £25. When I was in Kashmir, my home state, there wasn't a lot of resources and I was struggling a lot. And basically, it's a conflict region. And my push to come to the UK was to get a better infrastructure, better ecosystem, a more stable country. If you want to build a startup, I think a lot of people are hesitant, as you mentioned. I think you should just begin.
Fantastic. Welcome to the Immigrant Founder, a series by Infinitum Education about the people who move countries to build companies. And each episode is going to be one founder, the real story, the journey, and the hard parts, the UK Innovator Founder that made it possible. And today we have with us an engineer who arrived in Bristol in the middle of the pandemic, left with first-class honors in robotics, and now builds Nearhuman here in the UK. Faizan Mir, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sebastian, for having me. I'm really excited about this podcast.
I would like to hear about when you just arrived. Take me back to 2021. If I'm correct, you arrived in Bristol in the middle of the pandemic. What did those first days mean to you? What did it feel like? How was it?
If I don't have a specific word for it, like how I was feeling about it, but I arrived in October and I did my foundational year basically online because of the pandemic. I wasn't able to come to the UK. And then our first year started in October, and that's when I came to the UK. And to be honest, it was exciting. I was nervous. I was worried at the same time. And I was just taking everything in. I remember when I got on this flight, it was an overnight flight. I didn't speak for the whole flight. I was looking out the window constantly. And I was in the morning as we passed through the European airspace, I remember everything looked different to me. The landscape, the fields, the houses, there was kind of a calm and order to it. And that I wasn't used to seeing that kind of like a clean air, organized buildings and everything. I was really excited about everything that I was looking out through the window. And then when we landed in the middle of COVID, everyone was wearing a mask, keeping their distance. And I got straight onto the coach I basically landed in Heathrow. So I had to take a coach to Bristol. And that was another 3-hour long journey to Bristol. I still wasn't able to sleep. And I think I arrived in Bristol around 10 at night. First thing, I got into the taxi, and first shock was basically the whole 20-minute ride was, I think it cost me £25. And I remember thinking, bloody hell, I could travel a very long way in India for £25. So that was the first shock. But then when I arrived at the house, one of my flatmates, Jamie, he was actually waiting for me. And then he showed me around, showed me my room and kitchen. And then another flatmate, Chloe, a really good friend, had left me some sweets for my welcome. And it sounds like a very small thing, but I think, traveled across the whole world. I didn't know anyone. We were in the middle of pandemic, and suddenly these complete strangers were making me feel welcome. I wasn't expecting that at all. So I then had to quarantine for a bit. So my first experience of Bristol was mostly from inside the house. I got to know my flatmates from a distance, and Jamie and I became really good friends during that time. He was in his final year and I was in my first, so he helped me a lot with a lot of things. And I remember my first few days were very strange. Basically, I wasn't allowed to leave my room, leave the house. So I had left everything I knew behind, but almost immediately Bristol started giving me little signs maybe I was going to be okay. And I was kept looking out the window, and I remember it was autumn time, and I really loved the season autumn, and it was colorful leaves on the road and everything. And I was really excited. Okay, when can I go out and actually see the place?
Absolutely. Yeah. I understand what you mean about this. Coming to a new place also means a new community, getting to know these new people, and just small details can feel very welcoming and warm. And about
Exactly.
that, how did your family feel about you leaving? What was the general feeling? Was it about excitement? Was it about fear? How did you guys feel?
I think it was a mixed feeling. I think my father was excited and he was sponsoring me for the whole journey. But at the same time, my mum she had mixed feelings. I think she was brave at the same time, but at the same time, she was losing her son. He was going miles and miles away. And it was a little bit disappointing. She was a bit sad about this. but at the same time, she was very brave. So I wouldn't say it was easy to leave the family behind. It was hard for me as well at the time. I was really sad when I left, but at the same time,
Absolutely. And how was it for you building a new community in the UK, a new network? How's that been for you?
um, I think it started from my course mates. When you first meet them, when it's your first initial session, everyone introduces themselves. And at the same time, I was very nervous because it complete strangers in a completely different environment in a different country. And the humor wasn't even the same. I couldn't even make jokes and stuff because we were not on the same humor level.
And thinking more about your professional network, who do you
Yes.
consider the first person that professionally bet on you or believed in you or your project, and what convinced them?
I think it was definitely our incubation manager. So at our university, there's this incubation space. We call it Launch Space, and it's based in the Bristol Robotics Lab. And we have this incubation manager who kind of looks at our applications, has chats with us, and it basically informal chats about the idea itself and everything, and whether this is a good idea. And I think he was the first person who believed in our idea. But to be completely honest, our idea was completely different when we initially started. I wanted to do fully autonomous micromobility vehicles where you could summon them on demand. I was really excited about it. And I think our incubation manager, Mark, when I had a chat with him, he pulled me back and he was like, okay, you need to think about all these things. I believe in your idea, but I think if you hone your idea a little bit more, create a proper business case about it, I think there's a huge potential there. And I think it started from there. And he was the first person to believe in the idea.
And tell me more about Nearhuman. Why micromobility safety, and what makes it different from what current companies are or were doing?
So micromobility is our beachhead market. We want to expand into other markets, and my expertise is basically in robotics, computer vision, and I wanted to use my skill to do something good for the society, for the environment. And micromobility industry is basically growing rapidly, and it is good for environment. Basically, electric vehicles, it's the future. But I believe like they completely skipped the safety chapter. Like whenever I used to pull up a news article about micromobility, most of them used to be, oh, there was an accident at some place, this someone died and stuff like that. And I was like, why isn't someone doing something about it? And I think that's where the spark came in from. And when I said like initially when I wanted to do like fully autonomous vehicles, and basically I think there's a little bit of role of my father as well, because as a kid, I used to build these amazing things. And I remember once I built this flamethrower you could attach on your arm. And then my dad was like, you do build great things, but what's the point? Like, how is it helping the society? And it was his mentorship in the first place that still sits in the back of my mind. Okay, if I'm building something, how does it help the society moving forward?
Absolutely. That must resonate a lot, right? In every step you
Yeah,
take in Nearhuman and in other projects too. And
exactly.
so,
Exactly.
so you in some way you pivot, I'm gonna call it, not pivot, but you expand from like engineering to actually going into a venture, right? To
Yeah.
become a founder. And that implies clearly a sale, that implies going to market, pitching. I wanted to ask you about like the first customers. How was that for you? Walk me through like the first customer you had, and what do you think earned that yes from that group, either
Yeah.
company or individual? Yeah.
Definitely. I think it wasn't easy, like getting the first customer. And when you're speaking, like our business model is B2B, business to business. And when you're thinking about our customer, it's not a single person, like it's not a single person you can approach to. You have to approach the whole business. And then you start thinking about, okay, how am I going to do this? Who to approach in the business itself? Who are the people who can understand what we're bringing into the company? You can't just randomly approach anyone in the company in the first place. So I created a list of like people I wanted to approach. There was like CTOs on the list. There was CEOs on the list. There's head of policy, for example, who does their policies and stuff. And I started reaching out to them on LinkedIn, on email, sending these cold messages out there. And eventually, I think I was stubborn as well. If I didn't get a reply, I would just follow up and then keep following up and keep following up. And then I got my first reply from the CEO of Voy, Frederick. And that was just an exciting moment for me. I was like, okay, wow, this is amazing. And I think in my emails, I was pitching it really hard, like the value we can bring to the company. And he understood that. And then we got in touch. He put me in touch with his technical development team, the CTO, and other developers as well. And then we started basically building it together. And that was the exciting moment for me. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is something. It validated our idea, and we were really happy about it.
And tell me a bit about the lows, though. I would like to hear about if there was a moment where building Nearhuman was challenged, or was it almost close to not happening? What has kept it alive? Yeah.
I think multiple times. It hasn't been just one time. I think when you're starting the company, there's these dips come in multiple times. I think mostly there's been moments, definitely been moments where we were like, okay, what are we gonna do now? What's the next step? And it's part of the process. And I think you learn from all of those dips, and you keep learning and stop making those mistakes as you keep growing, basically. And
Yeah.
I think these dips are important. I think without these dips, I don't think you will be learning a lot.
No, and pushing a project like this forward requires a whole ecosystem of support, right? And
Exactly.
and one of those elements, and that's one of the key topics I wanted to talk with you about, is the when did you realize that the innovator founder route was the best for you? And yeah, how did you decide that was the way in which you would continue to build here in the UK?
I think for me, I was initially on the student visa. I could have applied for any other visas as well, but I think I like a little bit of challenge as well. And I knew that I wasn't going to go into a job. I've done jobs in the past, and I think I've excelled at them. And I feel like I couldn't, I needed to build something of my own. And that was the push from this get go. As soon as my studies finished, I just started pursuing the entrepreneurship visa, innovator visa, and started preparing from it. I didn't even look anywhere else. I was hyper focused on this, and I knew what I was going to do after the university. And to be honest, I don't like to follow the noise. I like to keep focused and to hit the goals, and that's what I like. And I sometimes I miss the target, but sometimes it hits the target and it works really well for me. So yeah, I think that I knew what I was going to do.
And tell me more about the challenge. It looks like you're a person that likes challenges, but in this case, about the innovator founder route, what was the hardest thing about this endorsement process? What did it force you to prove in terms, I don't know, individually or in terms of the company?
Yeah.
How was that?
I think it was a kind of a shift. Basically, I have a engineering background, and I was doing engineering for 3 years in an academic setting. But when you talk about business, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of moving parts that you normally would ignore. And as soon as I got to know about the full endorsement criteria and what they look for and what I need to focus on, it's a complete shift from being an engineer to being someone who can build business. You have to look at factors like, is your business going to be viable? Is your business innovative in the first place? Is it going to be sustainable in the first place? You have to think about money. You have to think about financials. So those were the challenging things for me, because coming out of academic setting and being in an engineering setting, now you have to think about financials, and now you have to think about building those business cases and building those partnerships and getting, for example, letters of interest, networking. Overall, it's very challenging to do all of that. So, and also I had to do that, all of that in 3 months time, because the period from where I finished my studies to the end of my visa, I think it was 3 months, and I had to do all of that in 3 months. So that was like a very big challenge for me.
Yes, that sounds like a rushed process. 3 months.
Yeah, it
Fantastic.
was indeed.
And Faizan, I would like you to help me give some advice. Let's think if someone talented is watching from another country outside of the UK, but believes they like something before beginning
Mm,
and building something in the UK. There's always, and that happens to many people. They feel hesitant about its many changes. Building something new, just the idea of becoming an entrepreneur is challenging. Then doing that in another country adds a layer of complexity to it.
yeah,
What would you tell to someone to encourage them, someone talented that's watching us?
definitely. I don't want to give a generic advice. I think UK as an ecosystem is amazing, and it's an amazing place to build a startup. There's a lot of resources around you in the UK. If I speak about myself, when I was in Kashmir, my home state, my home country, there wasn't a lot of resources, and I was struggling through a lot. And basically, it's a conflict region. And my push to come to the UK was to get a better infrastructure, better ecosystem, a more stable country. And if you're talented and if you want to build a startup, I think a lot of people are hesitant, as you mentioned. I think you should just begin. You should just begin working on your idea, even if you're working on it part time. Just start doing it. Don't start worrying about the money, the other resources. A lot of people think the first thing that comes into their mind is money. If there's no money, we can't do anything. I think that's the wrong way to think about it. I think you should start, for example, if you're an idea, you should start building that MVP, start showing it to customers, get initial traction around it. And then once you're comfortable, I think they'll put you in a really good position, and you'll become more comfortable with your idea, the journey you're on already. I think that's going to help you a lot in the long run, and just stop thinking about money and start focusing on the right things. And then the rest of the things will follow basically. Once you have all of that basic things in place, you've built the base, the things will come in afterwards.
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, it's not just a good idea, that's a big part of it, but it's also a thing about testing the idea, starting. The
Exactly.
first step, it's actually giving the first step. Let's start
Exactly.
creating, start building, start testing it. And I agree with you, and also in terms of what the environment and the ecosystem means for
Yeah.
these kinds of ventures. The same person, the same idea, the same project in not such a positive environment will not
Yeah.
be able to flourish,
Will not.
right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think the UK, as you mentioned, is an ecosystem that's more leans more to supporting initiatives like this.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
about this change to the UK, do you think there's many things that you have had to adapt in the UK, or it, are you the same Faizan that would have created this initiative back home?
Not completely changed. I think 5 years ago, I was completely different. I think you become a bit more humble. I think coming to a different country will open up your perspective. You'll speak to more people. You'll speak to people from around the world. And I think that adds on to your experience. I think the same thing has happened to me if I was 5 years younger and I wouldn't have come to the UK, I think my mindset was completely different. And now my mindset is broadened up, and I can better communicate. I can make new connections really easily. I'm more confident. And I think I've picked up a lot of things in the UK that I wouldn't have picked up back home. It would have been completely impossible. So I think it has definitely changed me. Like last 5 years, I'm a completely different person now.
This is exactly what these processes do to you, right?
Exactly.
It's a way of growth. It's a way of going ahead and developing yourself. And it's been fantastic to hear both about Nearhuman and about your story. I think hearing about you, hearing from your own words, should encourage people to do this more often, because the purpose of the project we're building is that there's a lot of talent and just not exactly in the right ecosystem, as we were
Yeah.
talking, for it to flourish. So these are all initiatives so that more people and more talent can actually be used for the best. So
No,
yeah,
yeah, I think you've taken a really good initiative, and I think I would love to support this initiative as well in any way possible. I can relate to it as well. Like building in Kashmir has been really. I've tried building it in Kashmir. It's been really hard. Now I've tried building it in the UK, and I see the difference. And I wouldn't say it has been easy, but it ecosystem does play a huge part. So yeah, it's a good initiative.
yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And that is the Immigrant Founder, episode 1. Thank you, Faizan. And if this was useful to anyone that's watching, there's a new founder story every episode from all of us at Infinitum Education. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Faizan, very
Thank you
much.
for having me, Sebastian.
Thank
Cheers.
you.